Back to life, back to reality. Arsenal's horrible. like, back to real life, you guys. We're back. Arsenal is back looking like dog. Okay? Look. Okay, so I want to be consistent that I don't think preseason is like the end all be all, but I do think it means a little bit, and you can kind of make we can see that we're not quite there, but like really it's the same players making the same mistakes, isn't it? So we have to always remember that you can't expect anything different from Holding, Marie, Chambers, Leno, Bellerin, Xhaka, Elneny. They're not going to improve. They're not going to get any better. So, and when you have those players all out there on the pitch together at separate times, if you have 3 or 4 of them out there at once, you're going to get like mid-table results because they're mid-table players. Do you know what I'm saying? So although I feel like, yes, we're back in reality, we're back to Arsenal looking like crap. At the same time, like, I just want to be consistent. I don't expect much different if we have the exact same players. So obviously we lose the game 2-1. It could have really went either way. Chelsea could have scored 4 or 5. I think we had chances to score more goals. We should have got penalties. There's real questions around Andre Mariner, and his refereeing was horrendous. And what he did in the beginning of the game was he set a precedent for Arsenal players getting injured because he decided he wasn't going to call any fouls for us. Every single time a Chelsea player went down, it was a foul for them. When they did a hard challenge on us, it was perfectly fine. And inevitably, one of our players, one of the 3 that I feel like need to get through preseason uninjured, got injured, and Tierney was right there behind him, rolling around on the ground after a really horrible tackle. So I just think that, in conjunction with not calling the goal, which is all of the whole refereeing group, that's them, but the refereeing in general was really, really poor. And so F you, Andre Mariner, like, you know what I mean? Like, that was terrible. But that being said, there's still, we really should just concentrate on us. And there's a lot of questions around, I think, the midfield. And I think this highlights even further that our midfield is horrendous. Like, it's really not up to the standards that we need in the Premier League. We have a 20-year-old that we're relying on to be our main creative midfielder, who is not at the moment who we are projecting him to be. Emile Smith-Rowe was excellent today. Excellent. He really was. But he's not that guy yet, so we shouldn't expect him to be. You know what I mean? Like, he's trying to do a job that he just can't do at his age. Then you have Thomas Partey, somebody who, as soon as he gets injured, it's just finished because the next person is Elneny. If it's Xhaka, if it's Elneny, it's just not good enough. So again, reiterating the fact that we need 2 midfielders to come in. If 2 midfielders come in and we don't get a right back, and we don't get a striker, I'm perfectly fine. But that midfield needs to look so freaking different on September 1st. I'm telling you that right now, or else we should expect to be mid-table, because that is some mid-table stuff that I saw today. So we'll break it all down. There's about 111 of you guys watching already. Make sure you like the video and subscribe to the channel. Let us know in the chat box how you're feeling. And I'm going to go ahead and bring in my panel for today. I have Souls and George. Hey guys, how are you?
Hello, hello.
Back again.
Exactly.
So, I mean, look, it's instant reaction type things, you know. So obviously, most of the times after the games, you kind of feel a little bit different. You know, when you wake up the next morning, you feel a little bit different. But we're going for instant reactions now. So, Souls, give your instant reaction of how you, just in general. We'll get into specifics, but how are you feeling? Like, did this deflate a lot of your confidence going into next season? I mean, it is Chelsea. They are a much better team than us. Let's not get it twisted. But like, does this deflate you, or does it make you feel like, well, you know, we're still missing some key players?
The thing is, I know we're missing Gabriel, and obviously White didn't play, but that was horrible to watch. That was hard. Like, I'm not even gonna try and sugarcoat it anymore. That was hard. I was like, oh my god, get ready for mid-table, because it's not even the defenders, it's the structure. There was nothing there. It was one ball over the top, and guess what? It's up to Leno to save it. And to be fair to him, bar that one thing, he actually didn't have a bad game. Now, I thought he pulled off some really good one-on-one saves. He's a very weird player. Like, there's some times where you're like, wow, okay, Leno, like, fair play to you. And then you've got the Ziyech moment where you're like, what the fuck are you doing? And I think that was just what the whole team was today. Like, what are you guys doing? One end of the pitch we can't finish, the other end of the pitch we can't defend, and we're 2 weeks away from the Premier League starting. We're not getting top four, telling you that, regardless of whether we bring players in. It's going to take time for them to gel. It's going to take time for them to come in and actually integrate into the plan. So I think top four is out of the table, like out of the question, because Chelsea looked better. I know people are going to say, well, we had chances. If we've taken them, we could have scored. We could have done this. It's only 2-1. It's a friendly. But for me, it's the performance that's shocking to me. It's like we're 2 weeks away, and the one thing we weren't really worried about, and the one thing we weren't talking about, was our defense. And now that's the biggest conversation we're probably going to have again. And attackingly, Pepe looked good. Nketiah looked good. Aubameyang is Aubameyang. Lacazette is Lacazette. There's no more I need to say about that. They were just... I'm not... Like, look, yes, Lacazette can play the ball. He can bring players in. But where the fuck is the striker? Why is he not scoring? Aubameyang, why are you not scoring? They had one-on-ones. They had simple chances that my grandma can score. Why are they not putting their life through that ball? Not anyone could have scored, fam. Like, even a walker that anyone in a care home could have scored them.
You're so crazy. I cannot.
No, I'm not joking. I'll find an old woman and we'll put the same situation and back in. They would have scored. Now he's doing. You know, the thing is, I am now concerned about Aubameyang. Yes, you're getting into the position, but any player can do that. I can get into the box and be in the right place to head of the ball, but yes, it's not going in because I don't have the technique to score. But I am getting really concerned about just overall. Like, this isn't good. This is not. I had confidence. I was like, okay, fair enough. You know, I want to. Gabriel, man, for the love of God, just play injured. I don't care. I do not want to see Holding anywhere near that starting 11. He is shockingly bad. Pablo Mari is shockingly bad.
I told you guys about what I say about Mari. What did I say about Mari?
And Bellerin is fucking off, so I'm not even going to talk about him.
Look, well, one thing I do want to say is that, you know, we talked about the defense being really good last season. And this is something that we never really got into last season because we just kind of took it as it was. We're better defending, but it's mostly because we like to have 11 players behind the ball. When you do that, you don't keep the other defenders, the defenders on the other team, honest. You don't. We are really conservative in defense. But what happened today that I thought was interesting is I thought as soon as Thomas Partey came off the pitch, that we would gradually get pushed back into our box. And if you guys notice, that never happened. We stayed quite expansive. But when you do that with your Rob Holdings, with your Maries, with your Chambers, with your Lenos, when you do that with players that are just not up to the standard and are also not, they can't cover those big areas of grass. Like, George, we always talk about that. They're just not athletic enough to really play expansive. You actually have to play low block with them because that's what they are. So he didn't do that. So we were getting done every time that they hit a long ball. That's just how it is when you don't have the right players, right? Am I going in the right direction here, George? Do you see kind of what I'm saying about if you stay expansive with those types of players, of course, you're going to get done with balls over the top because naturally they're low block defenders.
I mean, of course, but you know what? Look, at the same time, though, like Arteta's tried a different tactic here, clearly a high line with players that aren't suited to a high line, but we're doing it because we're moving towards a philosophy. I don't know. I didn't really see it as negative as a lot of what I'm seeing on the timeline. I saw it as a classic preseason game. I saw probably the first half where Arsenal were let down. We definitely tried something new with a high line, but we did it with personnel that aren't suited to it. So, of course, you're going to have the clean breaks on it. But, you know, when you do add a Gabriel, a White, a Granit Xhaka, who did insert control as much as we don't like the quality, and his touches were loose. It was very clear he just came back from vacation. But in the second half, we exerted a lot more control. I would say that we won the second half on balance of play. I just saw it a very classic preseason game of, you know, one team looking to try something new. And, you know, I think this is what these games are used for. I didn't really lose my head in terms of overall arching how we're going to find the rest of the season. I'd say that we had a lot of our technical leaders missing. Xhaka was missing, Gabriel, and Saka. I looked at Pepe and I tried to keep an open mind, and there was a lot of good movement. But at the end of the day, very classically, there were about 3 or 4 through balls that I've seen that he's in one-on-one and he's cutting back. He's not doing the right decision in the final moment. And I'm more inclined to give leeway to somebody who I've seen done it for us in the shirt for over 2 seasons than somebody that I haven't seen consistently do it. This was my fear when I say I thought he had a good preseason, but then he gets up in a kind of a good opponent and he stalls in kind of the final moment. And it's very frustrating because I believe he has the talent. I want the killer instinct to be there, but I just ultimately don't see it against the best of the best. And so when I looked at this performance, it was just a classic choppy preseason performance for me. There was a couple great moments. But at the same time, you know, Chelsea had some quite horrid moments too. And, you know, I think on our end, we showed similar, but it was really a 2-2 game of preseason. I wasn't happy with the ref. I thought it was really poor. It was a clear goal. I don't know what people were watching. I saw it kind of on my stream immediately. It was quite clear. I don't know if you guys have seen the photos. It's very clear to be a goal. The fouls that we received in the first half were horrendous. We were winning the first 20 minutes, and then the fouls got to a point where, you know, Partey was injured. We lost our reference in midfield, and yeah, it became poor. It did. But I mean, again, I feel as though you're looking at 2 teams that lost their technical leaders, choppy game. And again, at the end of the day, we tried a high line, which is what the point was, right? Like that build up, why it was so worse now is because we were doing a new tactic, and I'm sure we'll get into it. But the reason that we've seen so many one-on-ones on our end was we were looking for a high line. That was something that we weren't doing previously in the season. So that's really what Arteta wants to move towards. And it's really what I thought we were going to do. But again, it's just kind of teething problems with not having the personnel to do it. We've seen it with his other formations. You know, I've seen it when he tried to introduce the counter press. We had teething problems because we didn't have the players or the fitness. Once you get that, things look better. So yeah, I'm really not worried. Maybe it's vacation.
I see that. Like I see that, like that we had a high line, and obviously when you have those players back there, you're gonna get done. Like it just is what it is, you know. So I mean, I'm not as worried about it just because I know that those are not the players that are inevitably going to be in those positions. Some people will say, well, you need to play to the personnel that you have, but you guys know you would be crying if you had saw us bunker down in our box and not touch the ball at all, you know. So we did try a new tactic, and personally I think you do have to implement tactics based on what you want to do long term, because if you know Ben White is going to be starting, you know Gabriel's on the cusp of coming back, then you can play a high line. Now the issue here now that's starting to appear is we have no midfield pressure. When you play like that and you play on a high line, you have to have midfielders that are able to pressurize the other team. And we just didn't have that. And you don't have Thomas, so you don't have that pressure. I think Dr. Rajpal Barar, I want to make sure I get his name right, on Twitter, said that Thomas could be out for 2 months. And so, yeah, so we don't know if that's just speculation at the moment, but let's just say that Thomas is out for a certain amount of time. You cannot play a high line. I don't care if you have Gabriel and Ben White. You can't play a high line like that without players that can pressurize the ball. You just can't. I thought we were much better in the second half when you had more players that could actually move their legs. So, and I'm looking at it, I see in Lokonga, and I thought he had a really good cameo. I thought he looked pretty damn good. He should start against Brentford, in my opinion. I don't think Elneny added anything in that game. I think he put us under unnecessary pressure, again, passing sideways, backwards, and ultimately he got done so many times. I just feel maybe we need to roll the dice, because if you don't have Thomas, you need to have the closest thing to it, and that's Lokonga. Am I barking up the wrong tree, or do you guys agree?
I 100% agree. I think with Lokonga, what you find is he's someone who's not afraid to be pressed. He's a very press-resistant player. He's someone who tries to break the press rather than, like, and Elneny is a close example that I can give. Is someone who, when he's getting pressed, he looks for the safer option to not lose the ball. Whereas with Lokonga's not afraid to take a chance, to take a risk, which is what Partey does. And they're very sort of similar in that way. Obviously, we don't know how that's going to translate into the Premier League and when we play tougher opposition in more of a serious condition, where there's going to be more players up for it. Obviously, that whole second half, both teams made a wholesale of changes, and that could have obviously gone wrong. But Partey being out for 2 months, I don't want to sound negative, but that's
it's not confirmed yet. It's not confirmed yet.
The one thing I'll say is, like,
that is the case, like, that could see Arteta being sacked, in my opinion. I think that, because the thing is, without Partey, we've seen last season how badly we play, and the midfield looked like it crumbled until I think when Lokonga came on, the problem is obviously Lokonga's adapting to the team. He's adapting to his teammates. So there's still going to be sort of issues with him, and he's going to teeth into and he's going to get a lot better. There's still a lot more to come from him.
Would you rather Lokonga make his mistakes and get better on the job, or would you rather watch Elneny continue to make the same mistakes? They're both going to make mistakes. Yeah. I prefer Lokonga mistakes than Elneny mistakes.
I'd rather Lokonga because he offers us what Partey offers us. Maybe not. I'm not. By the way, this is not me saying Lokonga's at the level of Partey. But I'm talking in terms of profile, in terms of just the way they play. They're the most like for like.
It's his ability on the half turn. That's what. Let's not make mistakes about it, because at the end of the day, they're both going to have mistakes in their positioning and awareness. You know, Elneny's going to be safe and not progressive, and he's not going to help us move up the pitch. What Lokonga will do is he will do that. So I think Lokonga absolutely emulates a lot of what Partey is doing. But yeah, like, really quickly on the injury, we really don't know that, because I was even discussing with Dr. Raj kind of in a group chat that, you know, I really don't know if it's a grade 1 injury, which is a lot less than that in terms of it, because, you know, he was weight bearing, and, you know, there's a lot of positive indicators there. I just didn't get a clean kind of shot of it on my stream, kind of went down at the time. So, but even if he is out, like, this is why we brought Lokonga. like when we were looking at our preseason here, and we were looking at, you know, where does he fit in? Everyone was saying he was going to be an heir to Partey in case he got injured. This is the reason that you bring in those squad depth. So for me, I agree. I don't know if it was quite when Lokonga got on the pitch that we got control. I know people don't want to hear it, and Harry's going to be happy, but for me, it was when Granit came on the pitch. And, you know, I know that we love, I think visually, and I'm with fans, I love what Lokonga brings me, but fundamentally what kind of Xhaka brought us was those clean switches quickly on 1v1s, what I wasn't seeing in the first half, really. Partey was doing great in terms of his incision between the lines, but really that clean switch from defense to attack that we want to isolate 1v1, I saw a lot more of those big switches when Granit came on the pitch, and what that does is it gives a breather for the defense to step up in a high line. That's why those switches are so important. And, you know, to be fair, Lokonga had some really great over-the-top balls, tried to push up the pitch. So if you're asking me, Jess, kind of the two, which is going to start versus Brentford, it has to be Lokonga and Xhaka. Not necessarily for, not
Yes.
necessarily for the mistake issue and from a defense perspective, but more from taking the initiative. If you're going to be a high line team, that means you're taking the initiative, right? Like you can't kind of go half and half where you want to be high line, but then you want to employ midfielders that don't assist that, right? Because it's kind of suicide if you're going to have a flat midfield but have a high line with defenders that can't run. So if you're going to do that, let's press, add the athleticism. And yeah, I really think that this game was a classic preseason game, though. A lot of it is perspective. I really do think that a couple of those one-on-one chances that go in, they change the perspective of how we view this game. And really that kind of Ziyech mistake, for example, if it was us doing that, we'd be slamming that play. But I really don't see the narrative on that, kind of on the timeline. I mean, Ziyech should have put that away. Like it was a very clear one-on-one chance, and I'm not seeing the same venom with, by the way, Oba missed a clear chance with a header in the second half. That should have gone in with a Tavares cross. He was open, unmarked, in the 6-yard box and should have got it in. But you see this on teams. Like, I don't know. I'm just not happy and comfortable slamming players for a preseason game that I saw a lot of loose touches, both ends. And fundamentally, I saw first half won by Chelsea, second half won by Arsenal. I know the scoreline said 2-1, but come on, guys. Factually, it was 2-2. That goal.
I hear you. I do. Like, you know what I mean? Like, but I knew when we started to play the better opposition, if we didn't have a completely different team and we weren't beating up the other teams, like, that this was going to happen. The narrative is always going, what now? What's
Bellerin lost us a goal again.
The fan base is going to have a meltdown. Arteta's come out and said, Granit is going to stay with us. He is a key member of the squad.
Oh, I mean, you guys.
He ain't going.
Okay, let's just talk about this just really quick because I do want to move on to the creative midfield issue. But I love ESR. Please don't kill me. So,
and also, can I just say another Arteta quote? He said that he's going to have scans with the doctor tomorrow, but it's not looking good from the initial sort of evaluation. Yeah. And also, when you look at the image of the injury, it doesn't look good either, to be fair.
You guys, okay. So this is the reason why we got Lokonga. So I think we said that so many different times, like, well, if Thomas is not there, then Lokonga can step in. But with the Granit Xhaka thing, we spoke about this, like, wasn't it yesterday, George, that Xhaka was never really supposed to go? Like,
he wasn't.
Arteta loves him. He wanted to leave. So if he stays because Roma is not willing to come up to the valuation, they're not going to sell him because you guys don't like him. That's not how it works. You know what I mean? So we may not like it. He may be staying. My main issue is more Bellerin. He's somebody that has to go. But then when you look at Chambers and Cedric, you're not up to the levels there either. So you have to contend with that. We need another midfielder. We need a creative midfielder. Yes. If we're not going to upgrade on Granit Xhaka, which was never really in the plan anyway, you guys want Granit gone. The club did, they like him. Arteta loves him. So,
I don't.
Yeah, there's I think a more quiet minority that doesn't really care, is not trying to shove Xhaka out the door.
I'm sure they want to shove him out the door. But what I will say is, I'm not going to lie, and I'll take the agendas completely out of the question here. Last season, what I seen was I wanted to see more of that. But there were, the thing is, Xhaka's a good player, but he has his liabilities where there is going to be a mistake in him. And that's the problem. His mistakes cost us. And that's where I think a lot of people's issues are. Whereas when other players make the same sort of mistake, it doesn't really cost us. It doesn't really do a lot of damage to the performance or it doesn't lead to goals, really. But today what I seen was even that pass, like when he first came on, I think it was possibly his first pass of the game where he made it through to Aubameyang. That was fantastic. And then the fact that he constantly kept winning headers was a good sign as well, because we've not been doing that in the whole preseason. Sort of set pieces have been our issue. And for the fact that not only did he score, but even previously to that, he won like 2 or 3 of them before that, and Pepe was delivering them into him. And I don't know. The thing is, we're never going to get 2-3 midfielders in one transfer. And now that Partey's injured, we're going to have to keep him. It's the reality of the situation we're in.
Well, I want to be fair, right? Because that defending on the Chelsea goal was horrible too. Like, I want to be fair in these criticisms. Like, I'm not saying that he was the reason we scored, by the way, because that man marking, if you go back, that's horrendous by Chelsea. It's horrific.
Yeah.
It's 2-on-1. No one's marking him. And he has a clear shot, like header into the box. So I don't know. I find that what we're doing right now is we're anxious because of what we've done. I think what Xhaka gives us is availability. The best trait for a footballer is availability and durability, by the way. And so I do think he's a good player. It's something that I want to move on from. I'm very clear about that. And I've said that so many times on past streams, but what he gives us in midfield is a level of control that you cannot say anybody else does beyond Partey. So why would you get rid of somebody that does that? That factually weakens your team. And so I've never been a fan of it. And that's why, by the way, Arteta has never been a fan of doing that chord so soon. We needed to have that level of bridge in the midfield. If you're looking at creativity, and I don't think we've answered that question, Jess, but
Well, we need to move to that conversation because, like, I've been saying this the entire summer and people are killing me for it. ESR is not ready to be our creative beacon just yet. Right now, we have a couple of different players that have creative bits, but nobody that can really, like, lead us through when it comes to creativity. We have nobody that can receive the ball, turn, and find the pass through the lines to Aubameyang, Lacazette, and Pepe. We just don't have that. And that's not ESR's fault. He just has not developed that yet, or he's not going to be that player. I think he's more of a 1-2 passer, coming around the corner, overlapping. He's more of that guy. If we're not going to upgrade on Granit Xhaka, which at this point I'm feeling like now I'm more 50-50 on it. I think he's more likely to stay now, or maybe it's 50-50. If you need to bring in a creative midfielder, period. Like, at the very least, we cannot go into next season with the same midfield that we have. We're putting too much pressure on ESR. And I've told you there's 3 players that need to get through preseason uninjured. One of them has gotten injured already. Tierney was going down. The next one is ESR. If he goes down against Spurs, what are we doing? What's happening? What are we doing?
Thank goodness our big marquee signing is a number 10. Look, I think we've talked about this, right? Like, I struggle to hammer a team who, again, we've seen the personnel that won't give us the creativity we need. When you're looking at it right now, our first phase, like, I want to speak honestly here, because at the same time, if we can critique the team for no creativity, you've got Holding and Marie in your first phase, who, does anybody think those are our first choice in build-up? No. So immediately you're kind of having the Luiz situation where you have nobody pressing the ball, and you're then having to ask all of your friends to kind of hang back because they don't have the technique to get out of the press. That's the first thing. And so immediately you're already playing hampered. Then when you look at kind of Emile, he doesn't have a second creator in that frontline lineup. Pepe isn't a ball defeat person. Okay, he can receive ball defeat, but he has not shown, and once again in this game, he hasn't shown the technique to control the ball defeat. And so his best moments were kind of on the run and behind, which I don't mind. But you then have to have a second creator that is confident on the ball. What do we have? Aubameyang, who is another player that is not a ball defeat person. And then you have the balance, once again, Lacazette and ESR. And we've seen this time and time again. It does not work. So what do you need? You need somebody else with ball defeat in the front line. And you need to give that freedom to one player in the front line. Once again, we are playing with an imbalanced front line, with also a first phase buildup that is not clear, unable to give the ball to the players in kind of confident positions. And then we're sitting here saying, where's the creativity? Well, the issue is you do need to fix the balance in the team from the back and in the front. So I think for ESR, he displayed a lot of great moments. Today, he gave a lot more through balls than people actually kind of critique him for. A lot of the big things that, you get critiques with Emile Smith-Rowe is tempo setter, great, ball defeat, great under pressure, but can he get that killer pass? Does he have the eyes for the through ball? And I saw that kind of in abundance today. And so I was really happy with that. You're right. We need another reference in attack, but not so much from a creativity, but for me, holding the ball. We don't have somebody confident in that front line to hold the ball. I would argue you put Saka, and it's not because I hate Pepe. It's because I need somebody to hold the ball up in the middle of the pitch. I don't have anybody beyond Emile that I'm confident in that kind of front line to do it. Lacazette, he comes deep, but he's too weak in the challenge. He really is. He does it at times, but he's not consistent holding on to the ball. And so what you got is a ping pong game, right? The back line says, oh crap, I can't hold on to it. Let me just fire it forward. Then the players up top can't hold on to it because they don't have the technique. And we're back in this kind of middle zone where we're all critiquing where's the midfield. And that's kind of the same spiral that we've been in. So I just think it's patience. I really do agree we need some additions. We knew that, though, going in. It makes no sense that our marquee signing is Maddison. I hope people can now see, because not only is he a creative machine, but he's somebody that can hold the ball. When we're kind of looking right now, we're saying that Lokonga is the only one on the half turn. Maddison is somebody that is able to hold the ball on the half turn, take it on the gate, and attack space. We really need somebody else doing that. I really do feel that we're missing Saka quite a bit. I always said he's our technical reference last season, and big reason why we are stuttering in attack. In fact, he proved it for the Euros. If you guys want to go back, England weren't exactly firing. When we did include Saka, he was that link to kind of defense and attack, and what you saw was a lot more cohesion between the thirds. This is a player that gives us the glue to do a lot of the things that we're seeing right now in inefficiencies. So on one hand, was the performance poor? Absolutely. But did I see it with our first choice key pillars? No, I didn't. So then I'm sat there saying, I don't feel comfortable critiquing a team who ultimately went for a different tactic with personnel they knew would be poor, but just to try it out. And by the way, it's a preseason game. This is what I'd expect from a coach going in to do it. So I would be more worried if this same tactic with the same players are employed at Brentford. I'd be with you guys, but I didn't see first choice 11 out there. And I know Partey won't, because he is unlikely to be there for Brentford, but I'm with you guys. I need to see Lokonga, because that's our best bet of emulating what Partey does. If you don't do that, that becomes worrying, right? Because then that becomes a coach kind of succumbing to pressure again. And I don't think we can do that.
Let's go through these super chats really quick. Usopp says, going into the season with Xhaka in mid doesn't work. 5 years running is the proof. I think going into the season with, I get what you guys are saying. I know so many people don't like him and and you're totally justified in that. If you just see it as he's not good enough, that's perfectly fine. The reality is there's a difference between what we want and what the club wants. And I was never convinced that Arteta wanted Xhaka to go. I think we want him to go so bad that we can't understand why Arteta would want to keep him. I think Thomas Partey plus Xhaka was quite successful, but without another number 10, I think you're limited still. So I get what you're saying, but I would say that get used to it, because Xhaka's probably going to be here. There's another super chat here from Keenan saying, would we be better off with Willock in the number 8 and bringing in a starting DM Basuma, or Xhaka as a 6 and bring in a box-to-box like Bruno Reich? I think with these options, I'm trying to figure out what happens to Thomas. Like, what do you mean? Like, okay, so I think the issue that we're having now is that we wanted Xhaka to go, but I don't think I feel like maybe we didn't look at the profiles that we were being linked with. We were being linked with more Granites. We were always going to be with another Granite. We were either going to have Neves or Locatelli or somebody like that. So I think
Granite was leaving, though.
If Granite was going. So if he's still here, then Thomas plays next to him / Lokonga, and then we need another number 10. Like, I don't see Willock in this system at all, even though I thought that he was bright, but he still doesn't quite fit. Like, he's not a clean fit, because he's more of like that, you know what I mean? He's more of that. He's not really a pivot player, and he's not really a 10. And then when we start talking about DM like Basuma, I mean, if Xhaka doesn't go, then we're not going to need a Basuma. Like, I guess it's hard for me to really see those as options when they don't include Thomas. You know what I mean?
I think the reason he's brought that in is because Partey's injured. I think that's what he's trying to refer to. If Partey's injured, this is what we could do.
Well, that's why we got Lokonga, you guys. Like, Lokonga is if Thomas is not there.
Well,
am I missing something?
I actually see it a little bit different. I think he is talking about with Xhaka and not really Partey injured. But when you do have a Basuma, and I've said this, you allow Partey to push a little bit higher up, more into the right center mid spot. And that's the whole reason I wanted a Basuma. So you can flip between this 3-man midfield and this 2-man midfield. So at times you can be a pivot with, your Partey and your Basuma kind of in there. And look, We had another friend to talk about analysis. But yeah, with Willock in the 8, like that's the perfect profiles that you would look for. Partey can emulate very much a Wijnaldum function in a midfield, if you guys want to think about it that way, right? He's an all-rounder that like would look to progress play, right? So put him higher up, stick a Basuma, who's your Fabinho, kind of in the back, and then your third man midfield with Willock provides your goal threat. For me, that's much more of a midfield I'm kind of adhered to. When you get a Shaq as a 6 and then a box-to-box and Guimaraes, yes, he is a box-to-box, but really he's another one of those that want to take reins of possession. And once again, you're having two players that are wanting to do the same thing in the same roles in the same zone. Once again. So, yeah, for me, if I had the choice between the two, it's very clear the former over the latter, because you have a blend of profiles that'll do stuff a little bit different in the midfield. So I would definitely prefer the former, even though I'm not a 3-man midfield guy. I am a pivot guy, but yes, former for sure.
Yeah, it's an interesting conundrum because it all really, to me, depends on if Granit leaves or not, and right now it's just kind of like, I'm more concerned about making sure that we get another number 10 in, but I mean, we'll see. I see another super chat here, you guys. Let me make sure I'm getting them all before we move forward. Nashville Gooner, hey, says Arsenal fan here, looking for more outrage and shallow conversation. Thanks. Yeah, so I mean, I think it's just difficult for me to get like so thing because I don't expect much from those guys that we know are here. How do you expect to get more out of Holding, Marie, and these guys? Like, I don't really understand. And you could go into, well, why are they still here? Well, we know why they're still here. Like, we know why they're still here. So I get it. It's not exciting. It's disappointing because, but I still think we need to look at it from the perspective of like, we only see the most negative things that are there, but I saw opportunities that we could have put it. It's different if we were sitting in our box and getting peppered, but we weren't. We're getting beat over the top with Marie and Holding in our back line.
No, but
see what I'm saying?
What it is? No,
and we had chances to score. We had chances. That's more the issue to me, is that we didn't finish our chances, not the defense is so bad when we're playing a high line with two players that are low block defenders. See what I'm saying?
Yeah, but I think the issue is that we're trying something with defenders that just don't work for that system. And it's like, well, why are we doing that? We need, I don't know.
Because they're not going to be there on the first game of the season. They're not.
No, I understand that. But what I'm trying to say is that you can't. The issue is we need to obviously put these tactics to play in the friendlies rather than Brentford being our first game and then we decide to play a high line. That would be obviously suicidal. I wouldn't want that to happen. But at the same time, I think what fans' concerns is why are we using the wrong players for the wrong systems when if, let's just say, for example, for some reason we're having to play Marie and Holding, we need to get them used to playing the system we're going to play with them. A high line doesn't work for them. But if White and Gabriel are available, then deploy the high line. But I think
you can't wait until they get there because it's not just the back line. It's the entire team is playing a high line.
But that's what I'm saying. But that's what I'm trying to get to, is that we need to obviously try it so that the other players, bar the centre-backs, are at least used to playing that system. Obviously, if we don't play it at all, the problem that Arteta had, it wasn't that he needed a pre-season. That's not the excuse for last season and why he finished 8th. But he did have an opportunity to play in sort of a less stressed environment. Friendlies, you know what, you can get away with it. You can play whatever system you want and try things. That's the whole point of friendlies or like pre-seasons. And I think people, I don't get me wrong, I'm a bit annoyed because I'm like, this defensive was suicidal, but I understand it. I do get it. And I applaud Arteta for at least doing it now, realizing, okay, if I'm playing Marie and Holding, I'm not doing that because that's like my career done.
I just feel like we need to be consistent because I get that we didn't like the high line because we're getting done over the top. But I remember hearing Arsenal fans bitching, moaning, and complaining about us sitting in our box getting peppered. That's the other option. You either do the high line and you're a little bit more progressive and then they ping balls over the top and we get done like that, or you're spending 90 minutes in your own box defending. Those are your options.
Jess, didn't we all complain about this is the transition we want to do to dominate as a team? Didn't everyone sit there and
we're not comfortable watching the team change.
Of course we're
like,
not.
You know what I
We're-
mean? Like, I get what you're saying.
Fans are impatient, and I'm sorry, they're hypocritical. On one end, they want us to stop this camp in our box style, but then as soon as we transition to a high line with personnel we all know aren't suited for it, but we're doing it as a teething issue because you can't just surprise it on the middle of the season. And and again, if you're doing this in a preseason game, that's what the coach is supposed to do. Like, we use preseason in order to change tactics, to employ systems. This is what the coach uses it for. So I'm not going to sit there and hammer a man who's experimenting in a preseason game where I think 3 weeks ago we would have said, look, in preseason, Arteta's going to try a high line. How many of you would have said, oh, awesome, I'd love that? I'd say 90% of you. How many of you would have said, we're going to try it even though we have Gabriel out, even though we have White out, and we don't have the players? Yeah, I'll take it because it's a meaningless preseason game. That would have been the narrative prior to kind of this Chelsea game, I would argue, 2 to 3 weeks ago. But I get it, because we're facing rivals. It kind of pushes you to want to win and win at all costs. But look, I just really think that a lot of this right now is teething problems from personnel as opposed to kind of a system change issue. We're going to be a high line team because we want to reestablish dominance. Okay, that's what we are. If you guys don't want boring football, I'm sorry. That's not low blocks. That's not mid blocks. That's not camping in your own half. That's being a halfway line defending team. And will it come with some teething problems? Heck yeah, it will. But just be patient and allow the man to employ it in preseason where it doesn't really matter, where there isn't a cost of points. It sucks that we've got Partey injured, but that's kind of the price you pay for playing good teams. I don't think the ref helped us. I hate to comment on the ref because I really
he
blame
was
officiating, but it was horrendous. And a lot of the challenges that he let fly weren't good for a preseason game. He established the precedent here. He's not at fault for Partey's injury, but what he is at fault for is for letting the players believe that's the standard we can play at in this game. It wasn't on for a preseason.
And not both ways. Every single time a Chelsea player went down, boom, call. When we went down, it was play on. And it's
you know
just,
why?
it's horrendous.
It's because we're poor. And I've said this in kind of past streams. Unfortunately, we need to reestablish our dominance. It doesn't just work in the market. But guys, this works kind of also in the league. And we're not respected. We just aren't. In terms of not even just the refs, but in terms of teams, they don't respect us. They push high on us. That's the transition, though, that we're fighting towards. And that's what this high line is working. That's why I want to circle back. This high line is the first step to do it. Okay. And yeah, I do think that a lot of this toxicity is growing because we're anxious. But
yeah, it's been growing a lot the last couple of days.
Yeah. I want to see the same energy to Zappacosta that we got to Lacazette for screaming.
Yes.
I want the same fucking energy.
And he was up like 2 seconds later. And I was like, first of all, who are you? Who are you? It took me like a long time to figure out who that was. Where did they dig him up from? Where has he been?
Well, one thing
is he one of their players from a long time ago?
Yeah.
How long has he been there?
He's probably been on loans like 5
years.
They
dug him up out of the dirt. I was like, Zappacosta, who is this person? And yeah, he screamed like bloody murder and then got up like right after that. I was like, this guy is a joke.
Well,
okay.
One thing I did want to just add really quickly is, I don't know if anybody noticed, but a lot of our set pieces offensively were really quite good. I think there's some...
That was better. Yes, it was.
And I don't know if we've talked about it, but like that set piece chain was very consistent for me. And I'm going to praise that coach who received a lot of criticism for, in the earlier preseason of us conceding on set pieces. But offensively, we looked really quite good. So if we compare that last season's kind of form on set pieces with some of this stuff, I think it's really encouraging, because set pieces was something I highlighted prior to preseason that I wanted to improve on. Like, I looked at it and said, we are really poor beating the first man. And I just thought, in general, today's game was really quite good offensively. So well done, Nicholas Yover. Thank you for helping that. We see your work. Keep it up. And let's just tighten up in the back.
Usab put in another super chat. Thank you so much. He says, is it just me, or is there a massive level drop off from Chambers to Bellerin? And that's scary because Chambers isn't great. Well, Bellerin has been, I hate to say it, but his decline is quite steep and quite quick. And I also think his mind is elsewhere. This is somebody who, he's not come out in the press and said that he wants to go, but we know he's been basically at the airport with his bags packed for the last couple of weeks. And now he's having to play for Arsenal in preseason matches against Chelsea. So yes, there is a massive drop off, I think, for multiple reasons, because he's just not as good as he used to be. His decline is steep. It's preseason, and he's basically, his mind is gone. But Chambers, he's just okay. Like, when I say I'm Chambers FC, it's not, I think he's amazing. I think he's better than Cedric, and I think he gives us more consistency, but his consistency is just being okay. He's not great. You know what I mean? So yeah, I think Bellerin's, a lot of it has to do with the fact that he probably just doesn't want to be here, you know, and he can't do the things that he was able to do before, whereas Chambers is doing what he's always done, and it's just okay, you know? So right back is a trouble area. I'm afraid that we won't get to figure it out. But I do feel like if we fix the midfield, we should, you know, it won't look as bad. But it looks so bad because you have Elneny passing the ball to Bellerin, and Leno, and they're all effing around in the back trying to play the ball out of the back, and they just can't do it. But there is a drop off there.
Also, really quickly, I don't know if you've gone, but there's news. Mikel said on TalkSport with a direct quote, Granit Xhaka is going to stay with us. He is a key member of our squad. So
yeah, Sol said that, yeah.
And I think, I don't know, I hope that we can move past the player debates. The only reason I bring it up is because I find we do this quite a lot, even with the right back. I think we know that there's a difference in qualities from our bench players to some of our starting 11. And that's part of the process of recruiting for a much better team in general. But I just hope that we can kind of refrain from player debates, because I don't think it's a one magic pill that's going to solve an area, personally. I really think it's a collective effort right now, and we're just waiting for that quality to enter the team. And so I just hope now that we can kind of move on from specific player debates and defending them, because I'm seeing too much of that, where it's like, oh, if we would have played so-and-so, it would have been a different game. That really isn't how this team sport works. And so while we can all agree that Hector is maybe not at the level that we want, and we want him to move on, I think we all know the situation there. And so there's no need to get upset. While he's here, he's going to be played, but until that moment where he's gone, we just have to wait and be patient.
We have another super chat here from Jim, who's a friend. Hey, Jim. He says, is it just me, or has Pepe become our best player? And so I think we do, before we get out of here, need to at least address chances missed, the offense, the players that came in and made a difference or did not. And, you know, we kind of already touched on Pepe. I think he's just that player that's never going to be consistent. When he's good, he's good. Then he just floats in and out of matches. Whereas when you have somebody like Bukayo Saka, he's good like the whole time. And he, like George said, he likes the ball to feed. And Pepe's really not that guy. So it's different. But for Pepe to be our best player, I would say that he needs to finish his chances. And he had 2 chances, in my opinion, that he should have put away. If he's going to be our best player and make a case for himself, he needs to be more clinical. Because if you tell me that Emile Smith-Rowe, Saka, and Pepe are not going to score goals today, who do you want to be out there on the pitch? I'm going to say Saka or ESR, because they give us so much more on the ball. So if he's not going to score goals, he's not going to be our best player. And I think there were chances for him to, we have to get beyond like, okay, he got in good areas and he had this and he had that. He needs to start putting the ball in the back of the net. We had this conversation yesterday. I think it was off stream though. Pepe is not young. He's not, he's
Pepe's
not young.
26, guys. And I love him. Like, I would love to be proved wrong. I really would. I'm happy to sit here and say, oh my God, I'm totally wrong. I'm off with this assessment. But at 26 years of age, who at the end of the season will be 27, if you're telling me he's going to iron out inconsistencies in his game in his prime years, like, guys, Pepe's in his prime year. He's not a 22-year-old youngster. This isn't somebody with a lot of football ahead of him. So while I think he's been good in preseason, and he's been arguably our best player in preseason, I think that's a fair comment to say, I don't think he's become our best player. I absolutely think player of the season, Bukayo Saka, has shown way more art of work to get that claim. But also Thomas has been excellent in preseason. I would actually put him as so actually much better.
Souls, what do you think about Pepe and like because this is one that I'm really watching, because it could really be something where we just fatten him up for a sale next season. He needs to be given a new deal if he's going to stay. He's playing on the same side as our best and most influential player in Bukayo Saka. But he's one of the only players that scores goals, but he's still raw at 26. What do you think?
It's a tough one.
Yeah.
The thing is, I think if Aubameyang's decline wasn't this bad, then the conversation wouldn't even be being had, really. I think the conversation really is who's going to play Aubameyang or Pepe now, because I'm seeing the same things from Aubameyang and Pepe in a sense of they're getting into the right places, they're getting into those positions where they can score goals, but neither is consistent. But at the moment, it's like Pepe is the more threatening of the lot in terms of, if we're looking at who's likely to score, it's probably Pepe. Saka doesn't offer us a goal threat, but he offers us a threat going forward in terms of he can make things happen. But I wouldn't bet my house that he's going to score in a game. Whereas with Pepe, the likelihood is higher that he'll score a goal. And I think that's where the difference comes in. I think a lot of our issues is more that Aubameyang is not scoring the way he is, and he's not firing, so we're having to rely on the likes of Pepe to come in and do that job, and he has done it. Like he's scored quite a few goals in pre-season, obviously coming off the back of last season as well. He's been good, and obviously when the age came, I thought he was a lot younger as well. I thought he was like 23, 20,
No.
not 20, but I'd say it's about 24, 25. I didn't know he was
when he came to us, that's how old he was.
Yeah, I didn't realize like he was actually there. So yeah, like I think it's a hard one. I think he's not lived up to the expectation. I think we all have to admit that. I don't think he's been the player we thought he would be. But the thing is though, when Pepe gets a run of games, he probably does play the best football. I think when he's in and out of the team, he seems to takes him a while to get back into the swing of things. Like when we look at last season, or the end of it anyway, when he got a consistent run of games, he was arguably one of our better players in that run of games. But when he's then been asked to come into a game, and then he plays one or two, and then he's out for like 2 or 3, and then he's in, like when Willian was playing and Pepe was being left out, that's when we started to see that actually Pepe's not that effective. So I think it's difficult, but I do think at the minute, bar Saka, he's probably our best offensive player. So it's a tough one. I think he's second. I think ESR, obviously, the thing is, ESR is the only 10 we have. But if we're looking at just wingers or attackers, bar ESR and Saka, he's probably the best we've got at the moment.
Nashville Gunnar sends in another super chat. He says, George, player debates are what make podcasts fun.
Yeah, I'll work on becoming a little bit more angry. I'll get my agenda.
No. Well, yeah, we'll unleash our agendas at a later date. Usav's rubber band. Another super chat says that Xhaka news has just hurt me deeply. Now, if we do bring in another mid, it won't be a starter. That's not true, because it could be a number 10 who starts. Like, that is still a midfielder. I know the pivot is something that we want to see somebody better next to Thomas Partey, or somebody that we just prefer. I get that, but it just is what it is. Like, I have a hard time accepting that the club, of course, I would sell Xhaka for a pack of Skittles. It's not my money. I would be like, here, take these Skittles and go. Like, or I would take some Skittles. Like, that's what I would do. But like, the club cannot just let Roma have their starting central midfielder for pennies. Like, that's just not it. And Xhaka was never somebody that, I understand when we talk about dead wood, I think that's the thing, is like, we define dead wood as anybody that we don't like. You know what I mean? Anybody that we don't like is dead wood. Granit Xhaka is actually not dead wood, because he starts every game for Arsenal Football Club. Dead wood is Kolasinac. That is dead wood.
Well, I think when we're looking at this midfield here, I think if we do bring in another midfield, I've kind of accepted that I don't think Bissouma is somebody that we're going to get.
I know, right?
That's my type, and I've said it so many times, and I hate, because I feel like I'm a Xhaka sympathizer on here, and I'm really not. Like,
if you're not raging against him and saying that he's the sole reason why we're not in Champions League, then yeah, you're a
Exactly.
sympathizer.
Exactly. And so I'm maybe not quite on that end, but another name that I've really been very vocal about on Twitter is Boubacar Kamara from Olympique Marseille. And that is somebody who's in the last year of his contract, who, by the way, if you guys do look into the stats, has much more final third entries than Bruno Guimaraes, has actually had more progressive passes than Bruno Guimaraes, and is
Don't
in
come
that
after my
Bissouma.
Bruno. Don't come after my Bruno. We gonna
I
fight.
know, but I just do it because there are players out there that can offer us both. And all of my suggestions, I hope to do that. I don't like specific players. And I think if we were to get another midfielder, like that would be my play, a kind of a Kamara from Olympique Marseille with a James Maddison. And I think that is 15 million pounds, maybe at most, in terms of Kamara, his contract. He's an excellent player. He could supplement a Granit Xhaka and give us that something different in midfield at very low cost. And so for me, that is something that I could see us doing. And if we don't do these moves, though, Jess, the only reason I bring it up is because I will be here critiquing the club. I don't believe and I won't accept that even with Granit staying, that we don't get another midfielder deep. I don't think that's the play.
So you
I think
think
that
we
would
need
be
another
pretty
midfielder?
responsible.
But you know
in the
the issue
pivot.
is, yeah, but you know what the other issue is? If we get rid of Xhaka, the problem that we're going to then have, we don't have any depth. That's the problem. We need to still. The problem, we would always have to bring in two midfielders, in my personal opinion, because
Of course.
Xhaka is one of those players who,
Like besides Lokonga.
yeah. Besides the
Okay.
because the reason why I say that is because if something then happens to, let's say, that Xhaka replacement, if that's what you want to call it, then who? Then El Neni comes back in.
I think
So
El
we're back
Neni
to
needs
square-
to have almost 0 minutes. I mean,
No,
the
but
guy is
that's
just.
the problem. Then we're back to square one where we're going to have this conversation again. Oh, now what do we do? And the problem is, Xhaka, for me, I've always said, get rid of El Neni, keep Xhaka as a squad player. I know he doesn't accept that role he wants to. The thing is, he's not a squad player quality. He's better than that, but he's just not Premier League suited. And that's kind of where the problem comes in. But we're going to then need to depth in the squad further than we need to. Keeping Xhaka for this season might be better for us in the long run in the terms of if we then go get a number 10 and we go get a right back. Because I'm not going to lie, I don't think Xhaka's as bad as we make him out to be. A lot of it's because he hurt our feelings, let's be honest, where he told the fans to fuck off. That is the pivotal point of where people cannot go back from.
Yeah,
and if you truly talk to them, that is one of their points. And don't get me wrong, I'm part of that sort of crowd where I'm like, well, he told, okay, you can let that go, but then he's told us vocally he wants to leave. I can't, once you do that, I'm a bit like, well, I don't want you at the club now, because you can't want to leave and then all of a sudden you want to stay and sign a new contract because the money's sweet. Like, it doesn't work for me. Like, but looking at him today, I didn't see what I've seen in a lot of players who want to leave. He seemed to be fine being there, and he seemed to be, when he scored, he could have just been like, I'm not celebrating, but he was passionate. That's the one thing I've seen. So I don't think he's going to be a disruptive problem where...
Well, I mean,
didn't
we are
get my
offering
money.
him a pay raise. Like,
No.
you know,
But
he's
the
he's
thing
probably quite happy, you know what I mean?
No, I get that, but you know when players don't want to be there. Look at Bellerin, for example. He wasn't really doing anything. He wasn't trying to do anything. He was just there. He was just a player. Whereas
And it was
Xhaka
lazy. So,
tried.
by the way,
Yeah,
I would
yeah,
go even further. That goal is ridiculous. And look, you want to get me mad? Start me on Hector Bellerin. That freaking goal, what he did, he turned and he passed loosely without looking to his man and passed into danger in the middle of the pitch. I'm sorry. That's football 101. You do not do that in the middle of your zone. And I want to go in because you know what? He's an experienced player and he should be doing better for us. Regardless if you're in or out, you should not be playing that way. That mistake is amateur. And it really isn't on at all for any level of football.
No, it's not.
And that's
you
the
know.
difference. So I respect his professionalism. Obviously, look,
Yeah, of course.
There's a lot of things where Shaq has gone wrong in terms of how he's conducted himself. Maybe we don't agree, but there's two sides to each story. And at the end of the day, the fans weren't right in that situation, nor was Xhaka. And obviously the logical ones and the people who like ourselves, where I'm like, look, yeah, he did tell us stuff like that hurt. Like, don't get me wrong, I don't want any of our players doing that. I know he didn't really like throw the shirt or the armband, but the way he reacted to the whole situation wasn't on. But I think from then he tries. That's the thing, and that's what I ask for a player is bare minimum. I want to see effort from you, and that is what you get with Xhaka. Yes, he's a liability in a lot of games, and he can be that player who costs us games. But at the same time, if we're looking at what do we actually, because we're looking for Xhaka replacement, so rather than replacing him, let's keep him for the summer. If we can go, if it gets us James Maddison and a right back, then in hindsight,
it has to get us that.
No, that's what I mean. It has to get us at least a Maddison or someone of that level. If let's say, for example, he wants to end up staying at Leicester, it doesn't look likely. But if we can't get that, let's say an Awar comes in or something of that level comes in and we get a right back, then keeping Xhaka is not going to be my biggest problem. I'm going to be, all right, fair enough, because we're never going to fill all the holes in one window. It's no club, regardless of how much money you're willing to spend, can do that. Like, look at City, like even the Grealish deal, they're willing to pay what Villa have asked for, but yet it's taken so long to do. Even with the Kane situation, they know what they need to pay, but it's still taking such a long time to complete. But it will be done, and that's what people need to remember. Marquee signings take a very long time to complete.
Yeah, for sure. I do think we still need to address the offensive players. I know midfield is a huge one because we're focusing in on Thomas and Granit at the moment, but we still probably have to talk a little bit about Aubameyang. How are we going to get him firing? How are we going to score goals? Because we still don't look like a team that's going to score 70, 80 goals, which is what's required in order to get into Europe, let alone top four. So I look at him, and we've been saying for a couple of weeks now. And what I will say about Aubameyang today that I haven't seen a lot in maybe in more recent games is his work rate was there. I want to give him that. He was tracking back. He was getting stuck in. He was taking some initiative on his own. So I will give him that. But what I will say is that we've been saying, well, if he gets into good positions, he'll start scoring goals. That's not happening. And now I'm starting to get to, it's now a legitimate concern that not only does he look like somebody who's being, we wanted him at center forward. That's clearly not working. Now we're going to play him off of the left. And Aubameyang plus Lacazette in that front line is one shy of conserving Energy FC. And I cannot do it again. I think we shoot ourselves in the foot when we play them two together and Aubameyang off of the left. So we have some questions, really, because right now I don't see a clear way of Arsenal scoring goals. Obviously, we're missing Bukayo Saka and Martinelli, but we have two strikers, and neither of them look like scoring goals at the minute, really. And then you have Pepe, somebody who we know can score goals, but is not really good in build-up either. Like, he's somebody that kind of holds us back in that regard. Are you guys worried that we don't have the right player in behind them to serve them the ball, and they're still missing chances that they should be putting away? Aubameyang is not looking good. Go, George.
You know what's weird? Aubameyang is looking good in the ways we don't associate Aubameyang looking good at. And he's looking bad in the areas that we do associate Aubameyang looking kind of good at. In terms of work rate, I just want people to be consistent, because I hear all the time that Lacazette's work rate for the team, it's been excellent. His link play with the team has been excellent. And Aubameyang did that today. He's been doing it in a lot of the preseason games and link up. I saw less effort, but today I don't think you can levy that criticism. Back in the second half, he's tracking back Zappacosta with extreme intensity, and he's getting into position. And so for me, look, I've always said movement is the best predictor of goals, and I stand by that. So for me, I feel as though Aubameyang is best when he's not used in that area. I maintain it. I don't like it with the left wing. So for me, the move is actually replacing Lacazette with a Maddison. And then that changes your dynamic, and you are forced with maybe an Emile Smith-Rowe dynamic on the left. That's what my biggest issue with this is. But what Arteta's doing, though, and I do praise this, is Lacazette, you do need wing forwards, right? If you're going to play a Lacazette striker, which, by the way, is your Lautaro Martinez type, okay? If you're playing that type, you need your wingers to be your wing forwards, okay? I don't think that's his best game, though, and I'm not going to slam him for it. So I think the play is moving Aubameyang back to the central striker, because he wasn't that today. I don't know why people are saying he was, because he really wasn't. He was much more on the wing. And for me, that was to accommodate Lacazette. And we've got to stop doing that, because I really don't think that blends well with his best game. His best game is get him in the box. Let's keep him there. I mean, yeah, as long as he's not scoring goals for Aubameyang, but for me, I maintain as long as the movement's there, then I'm really not too worried about it at all.
We really need, I think, like as much as I think Arteta's trying to fit his favorite people, not favorites in terms of like these are my best friends, but I think he clearly rates Lacazette and Aubameyang enough where he wants to try to get both of them out there on the pitch at the same time. But I personally think we play better when one of them is on the bench. You have to choose. Like I think he has to choose, and I don't think we have the facilities at the moment to supply Aubameyang in the way that would get the most out of him. He's not getting enough touches in the box. He's not getting enough shots. And I think he played so much better when we had like an Odegaard. And Lacazette seems to play better when we have Emile Smith-Rowe and some of the younger players. And again, we're still missing Saka, who's a key member of that front four. So we're not quite there. But my biggest thing is just Arteta needs to choose. If you go with Aubameyang, let's go with Aubameyang for the first 10 games, rock out with it, don't renege, just keep going with it and try to make it work. But when you switch Lacazette, you switch Aubameyang, you switch them, then you try to put them together, we don't have any cohesion and it doesn't work. It just doesn't. So for me, I would like to see him choose, and whoever you choose, you just pick the best team to play around him. And for both of those, Saka is a part of that. And then you just decide from there. Like if you play Lacazette, you can also play Pepe. But if you play Aubameyang through the middle, I don't think you can play Pepe because that's two players that want to run in behind and you need people to come in and support Aubameyang a little bit. So he has decisions to make, but he needs to make one. You know, I think it's almost the easy way out to play both.
I made this kind of last stream. Aubameyang has averaged less than one shot on goal per 90 last season. The best strikers average 3 or more shots per goal per 90. And I think he's missing at the same rate, by the way, as he has in other seasons. But if you're going to restrict that to a third of your chances, then you're going to get a third of your output. So I actually think in efficiency, he's actually very similar, but we're not giving him the shots to do that. So increase the shots, increase the cohesion in attack. You're going to see those effects regardless of Aubameyang or whatever. I don't believe, as much as I hate Pepe, for example, I don't think he's a bad finisher. Like he's a great finisher. And if I'm going to be consistent in giving Aubameyang kind of chances, I have to do the same for Pepe. He's not getting those one-on-ones as often as I would like. He misses more than I would like, and I think he should do better, but he just doesn't get them. So I really have always felt fix what's behind. It's not really the forwards that's the issue. I do agree with you, though. Making a decision on your front line is very crucial because one of my biggest kind of issues with Arteta is he does not balance his front line. He really doesn't, and he doesn't do it consistently. So if you're going to play with an Aubameyang, support him, please. Stop putting a false 9 type. They don't work. That's not what he is. So stop playing him that way. If you're going to get him as a central striker, put creativity across the front line. That's a Saka, Emile Smith-Rowe, and a Maddison type behind him, not a wing forward. So please be consistent, Mikel. That is something that I think you need to work on.
See, you guys, we're not up Arteta's bumhole like everybody keeps saying. Well, they said it about me. There is criticism here, and most of it comes during the season when we get to see the lineups that he puts out and the tactics that he employs, and then you can kind of decide in the transfer window when it's not really concrete what we're doing and what we're not. And a lot of it I do think falls on Edu. I think Arteta is in the room, but I think Edu is really the key factor here. Like, I can't really blame Arteta for things that I don't actually know what's going on. But yeah, for sure, he needs to choose. And I was saying that last season, please freaking choose and just support those guys as good as possible. But who thought Nketiah looked good today?
Me.
Very good.
Yeah, you look really good. No, I think
you look good.
Yeah, I think what we're starting to see is maybe Nketiah is starting to be used a little bit better than what we've seen previously. Maybe it's time for us to start using him as that sort of on the left, because that's what he seemed to be really good at when he's not got the pressure of being the middleman. Maybe it's a Martinelli situation where he's very young and the sort of adaptation into the league hasn't worked for him. And obviously Martinelli's got all the qualities as well of being a 9, and so does Nketiah. But sometimes, you don't suit it when it comes to men's football. because it's a lot more physical, it's a lot more dominant, and because I'm not trying to like size shame or anything like that, but Nketiah is a lot smaller, and he's still got the physique of a boy, like a younger, like he's not developed. He needs to go to the gym. He needs to hit the gym before I think he can become a really solid like number 9 striker. And but yeah, no, he's surprised me, and I think I'm not going to jump on the bandwagon and be like, oh, keep him now because he's looked good for a few games. But well, I don't think I don't think he will be sold. I think we're too far gone where there's no links sending him out to another club. I think it's going to end up being one of those players that we don't sell this summer, and we'll see how he develops in the leagues to come. I think he's going to get a lot of league games, League Cup games, and
He
FA
needs
Cup
to sign a new deal if that's true, as he's coming up to the end of his contract. We can't actually see what happens with Nketiah. Like, you know what I mean?
But he's not linked. He's not looking likely to be leaving though. That's just from, because obviously we got to think about it. Like the window is coming to an end. Like at this point, you should be hearing a club at least be interested, and no one's really come out.
There has been, though. Crystal Palace put in a $12 million bid and we rejected it, and they haven't come back. But they're also looking at Oates and Edouard. Until they solidify their striker situation and Watford solidifies their striker situation, because I'm not sure that they're 100% going in with Troy Deeney, I still think that there's an opportunity for Nketiah to go. It's just whether we are smart enough to just go ahead and sell. Nketiah can look as good as he wants to look right now. The reality is he's blocking Balogun, and we just signed him up to a new deal. And he's actively stopping us from being able to play.
I hear an agenda coming.
Oh, no, I ain't got no agenda. I told you guys my agenda is, Marie and Cedric, I'm watching you. I'm watching y'all. But yeah, I think 12 million for Eddie to make sure that he's off the books because he's not going to sign a new deal, I think is smart, because we're only about 3 million off in valuation, to be honest. He's probably about worth 15, and he's not going to sign a new deal. So as good as he's looking, it only really helps us in terms of getting eyes on him so that somebody will put in a bid. But I still think he will and should go. But I think he looked so good today, which made me happy.
He reminds me of a Willock situation. And I said this when people were talking about the whole sort of loan move to Newcastle. Some people just suit that kind of team, and Willock and Nketiah, those kinds of players, in my opinion, I'm not saying they can't become a top 6 or a top 4 team, like quality level player, but Willock needs that sort of, that style where it's a bit more unrestricted. It's like you go do what you want to do, and there's no real.
That's what he is. Yeah. He's a free 8. We don't play with a free 8. Look, again, I feel like we circle back. We're not playing players to their best positions. So Eddie looks good, in my opinion, because he's a sprinty, leggy tip of an arrow. I've always said this. I feel as though he is kind of a Jermaine Defoe type. I don't think he is truly able to lead the line for a top 4-6 club that want to challenge for big honors, but he 20 goals in the Premier League. I really do. If played every game for every season, he'll do great for a Brighton. He'll do great for a mid-level team. And there's nothing wrong with that. But the reason I think he does well is because he's young. He's a sprinty, leggy type. So I think people also forget he missed a very clear-cut chance versus Ibs. And then the narrative changed because we saw a really good 20, 30-minute cameo here that he's now.
He missed a really big chance today as well where he hit it straight to the keeper.
He did. And I don't ham because he was our best attacker for me,
of course,
at least today. But
I mean, I think that says more about how badly our other guys are playing than him.
It does.
Really,
it says like it's poor form, right? But at the end of the day, I think that we've made a decision to persist with Balogun, which I think is the right decision. And in order to do that, I'm with you. He does need to go. And I think for 12 million, I wasn't happy with the bid. I still would want that 15 million. And plus Mark Guehi, or I don't know how to pronounce his name, but Guehi from Chelsea, he did set the market precedent here. If you're going for 18 million, look, maybe we can take a hit because we're poor, but Eddie Nketiah in no way, shape, or form should be going for anything less than 15 million pounds, even in the last year of his contract. Like, that's robbery. We've got a guy that has done it in the Premier League, that has proven it, by the way. He can score goals. And he isn't as bad as what people done. Mark Guehi hasn't touched Premier League ball. So, and I get that perception. We talked about this yesterday. It matters. But fundamentally, you've got somebody that has proven it in the Premier League. So I want him to be sold because I think it means Balogun gets his minutes. That's the reason I want it sold. But I'm not going to say that, rejecting 13 million is bad. I think that was a good decision. You never, by the way, accept the first bid. So if they're serious, they're going to come back in. So, yeah.
On that, has anyone found out anything about Balogun and why he was excluded?
I think he was injured. George Bird had said that.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah,
he
serious,
a little
or
knock.
is it just like a little knock thing? Right?
Little knock, yeah.
Oh, okay, that's what. That's what I was thinking. I was like, well, it's a bit strange. He's not in the team at all. But
they did a feature on him in the matchday program yesterday.
Yeah. That's what I was thinking. Like, it doesn't add up, but that makes sense.
So we'll end it here. Yeah, not great, but like, let's see what happens. And I fully expect Edu in that. Like, I think for me, it's more about where we are in our squad building journey than what I actually saw on the field. Because again, I don't expect much from the players that are out there. We know that they're not great. So for me, it's about like, are Edu and Arteta going to make the right decisions from now until the end of the transfer window to move some of these players on? We're going to have to make some concessions, but also make sure we're not just getting ran over, because some of these clubs are actually ridiculous. But like, the difference between accepting 12 million for Granit Xhaka and accepting 12 million for Nketiah are quite different. And I would expect us to take the 12 million for Nketiah and tell Roma to shove it over Xhaka, because that's unacceptable. Because, you know what I mean? So, but yeah, you guys, we'll see what happens against Tottenham. Again, we'll be back. Same thing. And we'll just keep the ball rolling. Sorry, guys. I know maybe we weren't like, upset enough, but like, it is preseason, So, but yeah, we'll talk to you guys again soon. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, all that. Bye, guys.